On episode 9 of the Youth Ministry Sherpas Coast to Coast, the crew's pretty loopy with exhaustion. Brock just flew home through Vegas, Shannon survived Barbie Silent Disco night, and Steve has pulled off 4 major events in 7 weeks. But we managed to focus long enough to have a meaningful conversation about outreach events, what's a win, and how youth ministries can help build a good reputation for our church and the church in our community. And though we didn't mention it on the show, we are excited that we will all be together in one room very soon for some upcoming episodes. Hey, when you're tired, what do? You roll down the windows to stay awake. It's episode 9, so let's get started. Hey friends, welcome back to the Youth Ministry Sherpas Coast to Coast Youth Ministry with the windows down. My name is Steve Anderson, and I am joined by my good friends, Brock Morgan. Good morning, Brock.
Good morning, Steve.
And Shannon Dunn. Hey, Shannon.
Guys. Hello.
Good to see you guys on this beautiful Monday morning. So, how's everybody doing?
So good.
Yeah?
Are you? Or are you tired? I'm tired.
Yeah.
I feel like every time we
We're
come
all
on
tired
here, I
today.
complain about being tired.
You know, if you're not tired on Monday morning as a youth pastor, you're Superman.
Which is when we record.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That makes it a little tough. Brock, you just got back from a speaking engagement in Chicago, and you said you're in Vegas on the way back for your layover.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like youth pastor paradise in Vegas.
Well,
right?
let me just
you're
set
with your people.
Well, I spoke Saturday, did like a parent thing. Then I spoke in the main services Sunday. Then I got immediately on an airplane, flew into Vegas, and I flew Spirit Airlines. And
that's mistake number 1.
and it's not Holy Spirit Airlines.
It's the spirit of something.
If you were going to rename
Spirit of the air, actually.
if you were going to rename Spirit Airlines, what would you? This could get us in trouble, but I don't know. It shouldn't be named Spirit Airlines. It should be like. All I know is when I flew into Vegas and all these people were in the terminal, the Spirit Airlines terminal, on their way out away from Vegas, it was a scene, man. It was,
sure.
There was a vibe of like, I just lost thousands of dollars, depression. I've been drinking all weekend, hangover. It was a
Wow.
scene. It was a scene.
I hope it's nothing like the scene after I'm coming home from my fall retreat this weekend.
No, you don't want
I hope
that
not
scene.
for you. Yeah.
I don't think so.
Oh my gosh.
The last 10 days, I've had a wedding. My youngest son got married, had a wedding in Nashville. I officiated
So
the ceremony,
fun.
which was awesome. And I threw a birthday party. I almost said the number. I threw a birthday party for my wife, a surprise party. So I have been planning events out the wazoo, and I'm
And you have a retreat coming up.
and we have our big retreat in 5 days. So yeah, I'm burning down to the bottom of the wick here as far as creativity and planning, but it's okay. It's good.
All right, I have 2 questions,
season
Steve.
soon.
Did
Yeah.
you cry at the wedding?
Of course.
Okay, so yes. And
Yes.
was your wife actually?
I gotta
Was she
tell you first.
surprised? Was she surprised?
Okay, so yes, I cried.
Okay.
And you guys will be proud to know that I worked into the wedding message. I had 5 songs worked into the message, 2 by the bride's father, who's a musician, and then 2 by Switchfoot, and one from Rich Mullins. So
Rich
if that's not a good
Mullins.
wedding message,
Was it our God is an awesome God?
No, that's
Okay.
That's the worst of Rich Mullins, man. No, it was Hold Me Jesus. Hold Me Jesus.
Oh, that's a good one.
But yeah, and yes, my wife was surprised. She was surprised. Almost blew it because Walmart called her about the cake.
Oh.
But I played it off. I'm like, yeah, I got you a cake. I'm going to take it to dinner when we go out. So it was awesome.
Okay.
It was awesome. Yeah.
That's a good lie.
So great.
There are like holy lies. That's a
I like
Oh,
a good
really?
lie. That's a good lie.
Really?
it's a good lie.
God was helping me create that lie in the moment. That was a spirit-inspired lie.
The Holy
Awesome.
Spirit was with you,
Yes.
but not on Spirit Airlines.
No.
Correct. I
Well,
got
yeah. I mean, God is everywhere, but it was hard to see him.
Yeah. And
Oh.
Shannon, you bought a house, so you got nothing going on either.
I bought a house.
This is awesome.
And we threw a Barbie Silent Disco this weekend at
Wow.
church for high school students.
Wow.
And for me, it's that turnaround from Saturday night on campus at church to like, let's get ready for Sunday morning to have everybody back on campus
yeah.
for our like weekly big party that we throw. So
Right.
that's like, so I don't know. That
Yeah, it's
turnover
a quick
is always
turnaround.
rough for me.
And didn't
Yeah.
your whole staff help throw the silent disco?
Yes,
So like
it was
everyone
a-
was there Saturday, everyone was there Sunday. Yeah.
All hands on deck on Saturday night. And so, I mean, we got out of here at like 10, but still, it
Yeah.
still like hurts a little bit.
Saturday nights bumping into Sundays. That's rough.
I
Because you
don't
can't
it.
like leave, you can't leave anything. It's like, gotta
Nope.
fully turn over our campus because
Right.
we use the same spot that we use for Sunday morning. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Mm.
Unless you just have a silent disco on Sunday morning, which would be a
Oh
memorable
my
service
gosh.
for sure. Wouldn't
You
that be
can switch
incredible?
channels to hymns, go to choruses,
Oh,
pick your
that's-
style.
Nobody's
So-
picking the pastor's channel, I promise you.
Look, listen, we said we want to get this equipment so that the people who complain about the volume of the band can turn it down, right? Like we get so many sound complaints. So we're like,
You
Turn
could
it
offer,
down.
you
Put
could
your
offer
headphones
alternative
on.
bands. You could have any worship band in the world playing.
Can
in
you
speakers.
imagine?
guys, we just
Wow.
came up with something.
Can you
Oh
only
my
imagine?
gosh. We just solved the biggest conflict in American Christianity, worship style. I didn't hear what you said.
I'm gonna take a while.
Can you? I said I can only imagine.
Oh,
It's like the cheesiest joke of all time, and it just really got me.
I missed it. I missed it.
You could think about the possibilities. You could choose your sermon. You could choose your worship music. It
That's a
would be
funny
amazing.
bit, though.
It is a funny bit. I'm going to pass this on to Tim Hawkins or something. Anyway, we're going to go into segment 1 here in a second, but I just got to give you guys some quick grief because yesterday the Steelers beat the Rams in Los Angeles, and there were more Steeler fans at the stadium than there were Ram fans. And that's as it should be. So I just have to drop that because it's East Coast, West Coast, and I got to brag while I have a brief moment to do so.
I feel like LA or West Coast, we've really conflicted each other. But we have two teams, the Chargers and the.
Yeah.
It's like, who do you pick?
We don't
Who
need
are you
to.
supposed be
And
rooting for?
you don't even own the Chargers. They're there. They shouldn't even be there. So
They
I
should
don't think
not
LA
be. They should not
cares
be
about
here
football.
in LA. But
Well,
they're here.
Taylor
Steeler
Swi-
fans live and die by football. So
Yeah, they do.
It's Pittsburgh. There's not a
Well,
lot else
there's
going
too
on.
much to do in LA. Unless
Exactly.
if you're not winning, we're not coming.
Right.
Like
You're
there's
going
other
to Coldplay
things.
concert instead, which I
Yes.
get. I understand. So
Yeah.
I
Anyway,
just
well,
had
we're
to throw
glad
that-
we're glad you're happy. You know, and the Chiefs beat the Chargers.
Yes.
So
Right.
LA lost twice yesterday.
Go Taylor Swift team. Cheers.
Yes. The Swifters, the Kansas City Swifters,
That's-
or is
She-
it the Swifties?
She and Mahomes' wife had a little special secret handshake. But it's not secret because it was on TV, but like, so me and another woman in
Oh
the
my
office
gosh, they have their
learned
own
it.
handshake.
Yeah, it was really cool. And
Ah,
it's all over the
You
internet.
know it?
she's
It's blowing up the internet, Brock.
Oh my gosh, I've been out
Where
of it.
have you been?
I gotta Google this handshake.
Yeah.
I do handshakes with different kids in our youth group. So I gotta learn the Swiftie
It's a good one.
Mahomes. Okay.
all right. We got to go to segment 1.
That was
all
too
right?
much banter right
That
there.
was a lot of banter. Yeah, we were so sleepy. Now we're all giddy. All right, segment 1. We're calling this segment "Kissing Your Sister." As we,
Okay.
I always surprise them with my segment.
you do.
So we were talking about outreach events, and Shannon's church held an outreach event yesterday, on Saturday. It was a silent disco. So we were just talking about outreach events and what makes them successful, what makes them maybe not as successful, and how do you determine what that is? And the idea of kissing your sister is that it's a tie, right? So some events might feel like there's some wins and some losses, and they kind of end up in a tie. You guys are like, this makes no sense.
I've never heard that.
Kissing your sister, that's what you call it when you end up in a tie.
Is this back from like the 30s? 1930s?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, see? Don't
Grief
kiss your
today.
sister, you know?
You've never heard the phrase kissing your sister? A tie is like kissing your sister.
Okay. I think it's worse than kissing. I mean, kissing your sister is worse than a tie. Anyway. I used to hate kissing my... Anyway, no.
Oh my gosh, you guys.
My parents would be like, you guys got to kiss and make up. No, I'm not doing that.
We are off the rails today. Let's talk about outreach events. Oh my gosh.
All right.
Yeah. What's the biggest fail you ever had in an outreach event?
Oh, that's a good question.
I have one that immediately comes to mind because it was torture. We did so we were a ministry that was on middle school and high school campuses all over our city. We ran after school programs. It was really cool. It was awesome. And we had access to do anything we wanted on the schools. And we went to all the middle schools in the city and invited them to a lock-in.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just let that.
You don't even have to continue. That was already enough description. Knowing that it was a major failure.
A massive amount of kids came.
Of course.
And
a massive
we stayed
amount of drugs
all night. We didn't know these kids. They didn't understand what we were trying to do. And the police got called because a kid had a gun. So a kid gets arrested. Like when the sun came up in the morning, we were like, get the hell out of here.
Oh my gosh.
Can I say hell? Yes, I can. Oh my God. It was like, we are never doing anything like this again. It was so much work.
Yeah.
And we were just battling all night long. It was murder.
It could have been, sadly. Mine was a lock-in also. It was successful in the sense, again, we had a ton of kids there, but oh my gosh, to try to control it and actually have them like receive any spiritual benefit from it is practically impossible, at least in the context we tried it. I spent the night chasing kids around, sneaking out, smoking, and sneaking out of the building and stuff. And I vowed I will never. Oh, and I lost a kid. It's another story. So I will never do another lock-in ever again. Oh. Even if I'm sure I could get kids out to do it, but it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
No, yeah. I'm never doing it again.
No.
All of my horror stories, as you started talking about, all rang to lock-ins. Every single one I could think of.
There you go.
And I was like, okay, that's the problem. Maybe wasn't that it was outreach. It's that it was a lock-in.
Okay.
Yes.
But they usually are outreach events.
It's true. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting though, Steve, because you said to settle them down for any kind of spiritual component was impossible, which made me go like, okay, so is that how you're defining your win, is like what they received spiritually, you know, like is that, and that's my question.
Yeah. No, I thought the same thing because I did nothing spiritual that night.
Okay.
I mean, spiritual in the way of like teaching or worship.
Okay.
Spiritual. I mean, everything is spiritual.
Form relationships with kids, get them out.
Totally, and it was the worst.
Yeah. Well, I was actually trying to accomplish some kind of like worship and spiritual message at 3 a.m. So that was mistake number 2. Can't you even stay and pray with me for 1 hour?
Exactly. Oh my gosh.
So, as you think about outreach, and of course there's, a million different ways to do that or what that means in any given context. I mean, maybe the question is what what is the definition of success in an outreach?
Mm-hmm.
What might be something to go into it thinking this would be a win if this happens tonight.
Mm-hmm. I think I can speak to this because this Barbie Silent Disco, it's really fresh. We just had a brainstorming session about it like 2 months ago. And thankfully what we did was write up what wins would be first before we even brainstormed what the outreach event would be. And I just think that's such a good place to start. And sure, one of the wins was defined by a large number of students showing up to our campus who had never been here. But underneath that, we also wrote things like to create a space where high school students just had something to do where they felt safe and knew that like the church was for them. Like we literally we intentionally did nothing church-like, nothing about Jesus. The city of Malibu is weird. Like most restaurants close at like 8:30 or 9. Like there is nothing to do. Nothing. There's not a movie theater. There is nothing to do at night here. And so part of it was like, let's throw a party for high school students who have nothing to do at night, and see if it catches. But we just wanted them to know, like, Malibu Pacific Church likes high school students. Like, come hang out here, and it's okay to be here. So, I think you can define a win that way, too.
I'm thinking about the youth pastors all around the country in little towns, in the Midwest or down south, and they're like, there's nothing to do in Malibu, California.
Okay.
So anyway, I get it. But I love that idea of
you just go down the road to Santa Monica. That's what you do.
We're just here to we want to be a church where kids feel like they care about us. They want to do something for us. That's a win.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I will say, specifically to this event, we did not have the numbers that we wanted or expected. And we felt it even leading up to the event. And we debated to cancel it. We literally week of were like, do we cancel? And I think we finally said, no, scale back and let's go for it. Because even the idea that the handful of students that did show up, and by the way, we had a good number that showed up that had a great time. But I heard a kid say, like, this church is cool. And I'm like, if we could change our reputation to be cool or like for high school students, like that's a win,
Okay. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and I do think that there is a big difference between what a win looks like. Maybe not ultimately, but if you're doing pure like number, this is back in the day, it was just so much easier to get kids to show up to things.
Yeah.
Even when they didn't know you, because the church in and of itself didn't have the reputation that maybe the church has today. And so you have a lot going against you as far as what people's perspectives are, what their thoughts are about Christianity, about the Christian church, about maybe specifically evangelicals or whatever it is. But so right off the bat, it's more difficult to get a student to come onto a campus, a church campus, when there's so much like negative maybe perception in their thinking. So how do you so what's a win when you think of how do we do something that blesses that? What would an outreach look like in that context? What would a win look like in that context when your community is like, we're not sure we trust you? Deep Thoughts by Steve and Shannon.
While you were talking, I was thinking, like, I wonder, this is all about context, right? Like this conversation, because I think that there are places in the middle of the country where the church is trusted still. Like everyone goes to church. It doesn't mean you're a believer, but you go to church and it's what you do and it's very normal. That is not the case on the West Coast and maybe not all the way on the East Coast either.
Yeah, not so much in Maryland either. Yeah. Yeah, so you're right. It is definitely contextual.
I think that when you think about an outreach, is it different than evangelism?
Oh, yeah. Good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. Yeah, I definitely think it is. Like you said, with your lock-in, the goal was just to make a space. And Shannon, your goal was just to make a space for kids to come. It wasn't about decisions or presenting the gospel, right? It's an entry. It's a door. It's an
Right.
open door. And that, that's going to take time to see spiritual fruit from that. But I think maybe the perspective that's changed for me over the years is even if there is no spiritual fruit from that, it's still worth doing because we are salt and light in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's not up to us to see the final result and to take the pressure off us, and just be a blessing and do things that are for the good of our community is definitely a win.
Right. And that's a very long view of, what we're doing too. It's like, did one event change the way that, students felt about Jesus? Not necessarily, but did it help them start to find some belonging at a place that will introduce them to Jesus? Right? Like, yes, hopefully it did. Begin that journey.
I want to be a church where my community says that church likes us. Like they're not antagonistic to us. They love our community. They bless our community. They enjoy they love that they're here. Now that's one perspective. The other one is we like that they are here. We like that church is here. And so I think that that's what you're wanting as a church community. What does it mean to be light in today's world? Initially, it means that, man, we're just so glad that church is here. And we sense when a kid comes in, for the first time, I want them going home and thinking that small group leader that I met tonight, I think he liked me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
for sure. Yeah. I've heard one definition of success is determining if your church wasn't there, would it be missed by the community?
Yeah.
And when it comes to the student ministry, there's so many things going on for teenagers today. All, sports, activities, so much available for teenagers. They don't need another activity, but what they need is a place that they can belong, like you said, a place where they can feel known and loved. And I think the church has a unique opportunity to do that. So an outreach event is a way to get them kind of in the doors or take the doors to them and have them experience that environment that uniquely the church can bring.
Yeah.
I love it. It's a good conversation, but it's not easy. It's not an easy one to think through.
No.
What is success? What are we trying to do? What's a win? But these are really important questions as you're planning an outreach event, maybe versus an evangelistic event. I also think that word is important to think through. What does it mean to actually reach out? To move away from our property, to reach out and to bless. But man, good questions.
Yeah, that's good. Let's move on to segment 2. It's Get to Know Your Sherpa, where we each bring a question and we don't tell everyone else what the question is, and then we see what they say and get to know each other a little bit better. All right, so I have the privilege of having the question today. And my question for you guys is, as youth pastors, what is the least favorite part of your job? What is the thing you're just like, oh, crap, I got to do that today?
Do we only get to pick one?
Pick as many as you want, Shannon.
I will tell you, I'll just say this. It's not a daily thing, but it's, throughout. It happens multiple times throughout the season. For me, it is the administrative work behind getting kids to camp, specifically getting them to camp.
Yeah.
There are so many things you need. There are so many questions to answer from parents. There are deadlines from the camp usually that are chasing you down. There are students who refuse to commit to last minute. So then also, by the way, camps want you to say, I'm bringing 50 kids and pay for 50 kids, and then you have to guess, and then you could be out a lot of money. I don't know. The pressure of getting to camp
Oh, it's the worst.
squashes me.
Oh my gosh. That happened to me this summer. The camp was like, we need to know. This is like months, like almost like 9 months. We need to know how many spots you're going to pay for in a year. And I'm like, well, number one, I might say too few and I might say too many. Right. And this is really difficult. And I ended up paying for 10 kids or 10 spots that didn't have people.
Yeah.
And camps are not cheap.
Nope.
Oh my gosh, it's the worst.
And out here, if you don't book a year in advance, you don't get spots.
You don't
like
get spots.
we are off. We do not have spots for our younger 4th and 5th grade program at any summer camp because they've filled up the one summer. I decided to like wait a little bit and see if we're gonna do it. But now forget it. We're not going.
Yeah. I get it.
Oh my
gosh. We have to buy our spots for summer camp.
Hey, so you guys froze.
To this
Are you
year's
guys
camp.
seeing me?
Yeah. What?
Like it's like 13 months out. Because there's a specific facility or a specific lodging that we want for our group because of our group is of a certain size, and I want that building. So if I have to do it like 13 months in advance to guarantee I'm going to get that space. So yeah, that's not a favorite.
All right, I have one word to answer your question.
Okay, go ahead.
Receipts.
Okay, that's good.
I hate dealing with receipts.
Okay.
I lose receipts. I can't see. People are like, Brock, just take a picture of the receipt. You're fine. I can't seem to do that. And then when it's time to put them all together and organize it, and then what accounts they're supposed to come under, and then they're like, and then you're writing down the kid's name, who you took Starbucks to. I never do that. Right. So now I'm like, crap, what kid? I'm looking through my calendar. What was that kid? And then now I'm just making up kid's name. Jack. I took Jack out to Starbucks because I'm the worst. I'm the worst. And it stresses me out. And okay,
that's fair.
Yep.
I got one word also. My word is tech.
Oh,
tech. So, Sunday night, we're setting up the room for the group. We don't really have a designated tech person. Depending on who might be available. If my middle school guy is there, he's very helpful with that. But, I got to set up all the slides in ProPresenter. I got to make sure the microphones are working, the screens are working. Invariably, something goes wrong. Something's not connecting. We hosted DYM, the National Day of Youth Leader Training, last year. I had churches coming for the event, and I set it all up on Friday. I got there Saturday morning. We could not connect the computer. The computer would not connect to the projector. I was so embarrassed. We had to roll in a TV.
Oh.
So anything tech related just stresses me out. I'm a boomer, so boomer /
Are you a boomer?
And I was born like right at the end of the boom. So
at the end of the boom.
The end of the boom.
So
poof.
So you're like a cusper.
Yeah. Anyway,
I'm a cusper. Also, but down in a different place. Different place in that timeline.
Yeah.
All right. You guys ready to go into segment 3?
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Please
Here we
God.
go. All right.
Take us to
another
segment
title.
3.
See if you guys make fun of me for this one.
Oh man.
This one in segment 3, reading the room. Reading the room. Talking about the idea of kind of back to the outreach conversation. Contextually, in wherever your church happens to be, what is the reputation of the church, your church specifically, but also just the church at large in the community? And how do you function in a way that, you are either connecting to that identity, leaning into that identity, or maybe even correcting that identity in a way that can make you a blessing? People actually give you the time of day as a church and as a student ministry.
Yeah.
So good.
How can
Good
we
question.
be a blessing if people, in a culture where people may just dismiss us right away
Yeah.
for the fact that they associate us with something else.
This is so good. And a conversation that recently came up at our church, and it's just so helpful to sort of, going all the way back to like, what is your mission, right? Is like, if you're going to start there, you have to start with like, what is the problem as a church that you're even trying to address, right? And that's so contextual. And so for us, we actually landed at the place of like, we don't believe our community trusts the church. So kind of right what you're saying, we like landed there, like in Malibu. We don't think people have any reason to trust the church. And that comes from, a national representation of what Christianity is, like all the way down to that, like Christianity is probably not a majority of people out in here. And so much like universalism and dealing and like belief in Mother Earth and all these other things. And so it just puts sort of like this unsafe box, I think, around who the church is. Or like, I think church has a reputation of being even manipulative out here, right? And so when we think about how do we change what the name Malibu Pacific Church or church in general like means to the community, we've really had to think about that. And what, like, just inviting people to our campus isn't gonna like change the way they feel about the church necessarily. Not that that can't help, right? Like, I think there are things we can do that they can come and help shift, but it's like, we've had to say, what do we go out? And you kind of said this, Brock, earlier, like outreach is mean like, how do we leave our campus and as a church do things that help people see us as a place they can trust? And that's like, we don't actually even have the answer. So I'm not giving you the answer, but it's the question.
It's a question, yeah,
that we're wrestling with for sure.
I think another question is, what does our community care about? And do we care about the same things? Mm-hmm. And that could lead to a really dynamic, like, what are they caring about? And are what we caring about even the same? Is it the same thing as what they're caring about? Is there a massive disconnect between us and our community? I think one of the biggest obstacles, and I say this with a little hesitancy, but we have a larger Christian church in our community that is super political, and they're getting on the school board, and they're constantly picketing, and they're standing in front of schools and literally harassing teachers, and they're so out there and they're very vocal. I have been witnessed to sitting in front of my house. I'll do work out there sometimes on the front porch, and people from this church will walk up and evangelize me. And let me just tell you what they don't know. I'm a Christian. They are not trying to get me to become a follower of Jesus. They're trying to get me to become a Republican. And they tell me what church they're from. And I hate to say this, but that their reputation, and you'll ask we have a bunch of teachers in our church, and they'll be like, no teacher in our community trusts the church because of that specific church. And so it's like when the church feels like it's losing power, which is what it's doing right now, when Christianity feels like it's in decline, what you have is a group of people who are trying desperately to hold on to things, and it can get really ugly. And power was never the way the gospel spread in the beginning. And I just, when I think about the church as a whole and its reputation in our specific community, and what that church cares about versus what our community cares about, they do not align. And so how can you even begin to be a blessing to your community? And so for us, we're always up against that. And so asking that, what do they care about? What are their needs? Where can we bless what they are doing, instead of figuring out how to get them to bless our event by showing up? How do we bless their event? How do we get behind what they're passionate about? And I just feel like these are important questions as we move more and more into a post-Christian. Well, I mean, we're already there, but more and more that way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Go ahead, Shannon.
Brock, I'm just curious if your church has found any specific thing that they have done to show you care. Like, is there one example of what you've done?
We've done, we have shown up to our community's events and served at them and been volunteers at their events, different concerts, different airplane air shows. We feed homeless. We try to be integrated into the community versus run our own stuff.
Yeah.
And that goes a long ways. So how can I go on to, so youth pastors historically would go to the principal and hey, can I come on campus and hang out with kids? And now they're like, no. And it's the wrong starting question. Youth pastors need to go onto school campuses and say to principals, once they've earned trust, what are you doing that if you had more manpower or more money, it would be successful?
Yeah.
Like, what are you dreaming about that we can get behind you with no agenda to like witness, or we're just going to be a witness by living it out and blessing what you're already doing. Make it more. How do we make them successful? And dude, if we think this way, I think it changes. It just changes the way we view what outreach can look like.
Yeah, it's good.
Interesting. I'm proud of our church's reputation in our community. I think it's good. We do run a lot of our own programs, but we have increasingly gotten better at serving like our local schools. One of our campuses meets in a school, and they're a great blessing to that place. So I think that's really good. And I don't think the primary view of church in our area is what you described, Brock, although that element exists and we've seen it in local political engagement. Yeah. But I'm thinking specifically like for students and their perspective of church, I want them, they may be hearing all the cultural noise and forming those opinions, and I want to be able to combat those prevailing views of church today that you described with a whole different model of what we look like. And I think we do that. I'm just not sure we do a great job of actually taking that to them. It's more about them coming to us through their friends.
Which is good too.
Yeah, sure.
I wouldn't call that outreach. I would call that healthy youth ministry.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. But it is part of my messaging as a primary leader and a cultural creator within the student ministry of, hey, this is what church and this is what Christianity is about. It is not about those other things that you're hearing all the time. That doesn't represent who Jesus really is, doesn't represent who we are or who we wish to be. And that's not the messaging you're going to hear when you come here. You're going to hear that you're welcome, you belong, we love you, and Jesus loves you. And, that's going to be our primary message. And I think that even in a noisy world, kids will still hear that because they know that they're loved when they come here. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah. What you just said to me resonates when you, kids come in with these preconceived notions that God doesn't love them. Like, or at least the Christian God.
Right.
The Christian God might be judgy. And not like me. And they come into your youth group, Steve, and yours, Shannon, and they're like, oh, maybe there's something to Jesus. And so I love that. Yeah.
And I guess, isn't that ultimately the essence of youth ministry for every generation? That's what we want it to be,
Yeah. Yeah. You have a God who actually delights in you.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
And they get to see that by our actions. And, you know, Steve, you said by the words you speak to change the culture too, right? So, so good.
Well,
I think we changed everybody. I think we changed the world.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting. I'd love to hear from some youth pastors in different parts of the country what the cultural perspective is in your community towards the church, what your church's reputation might be like. I'm sure it's different, you know, everywhere. Everyone's got their own challenges, but I just hope that youth pastors in particular will be the kind of people who speak a community of welcoming and grace and love, and not one of political engagement. So. All right, guys. Well, as we wrap up today, it's time to share what it is that's kept us going in youth ministry this week. And we have been through a lot here in the last 2 months. It's been a busy time. So what has kept you going?
Goodness gracious. Shannon, what has kept you going?
You know, so good. I actually, like, picking one, honestly. I'm so tired, but then it's like when you ask me this question, I can really reframe and think that it was actually almost hard to pick one thing. But I will say, I'm exhausted from the Barbie Silent Disco, but goodness, I had fun. And seeing the kids be silly and have fun and get into it, that does give me how does it both take and give energy at the same time? I don't know, but it does. And I just left that and was like, I love this. I love this.
I love that you felt that. We all know what you're saying, because we know the opposite too. Like, oh my God, can this end?
Yeah.
And so I love that you felt like, I love this. It's a good reminder that there is joy in this stuff. Yeah. I love it. Steve, what about you?
Yeah, I can go next. I know you're still thinking about it, Brock. I sat in on Wednesday is our middle school night. I sat in with the 8th grade girls group and just had a blast. We have this great group of 8th grade girls. Their leaders are awesome. And I sat in there and listened to their personalities, and I was just delighted. So just to see that they were all actually really kind to each other, which isn't always the case, you know, with middle school kids, and just had a great group culture, great vibe, and they're so sweet. Can't wait for them to come into high school next year. But that was a highlight for me.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so good. Okay,
Brock, we've been stalling, so you got to go now.
So I spoke at a church in Chicago, and afterwards there was a small lineup of teenagers who wanted to talk with me, and it just felt like I was speaking to the whole congregation, but kids wanted to come talk to me. And it was so awesome. And I just left it was just such joy hearing how God's impacting them and a little bit of their story and how they were challenged. And then parents came up and talked to me, and I got to pray with people. And I just went, this is why we do this. Like, it's just to be there, to be present, to be a great listener, to pray for people. I loved it. So that's my highlight.
It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you got to minister to all the people in Vegas in the airport on your way home. And it was the same. They were coming up to you and you were praying for them. And I'm sure it was very much the same environment.
Yeah.
I did have a fantasy about walking up to one of the, what's the thing that you pull when you're gambling?
Slot machine?
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh. I was fantasizing about putting $1 in and winning. The number that came to my mind was $5 million. And then, and then I was fantasizing, what would I do with $5 million? Have you guys ever had these, like, I could spend 30 minutes just thinking about, I would do this, and then,
Oh, but mine always hits a wall when I realize $5 million is not enough to do almost anything. When I like check off like the first box, I'm like, well,
Yeah,
it's
when
pretty
you live
much
in
gone.
Malibu, that can get you a hoagie at the local sandwich shop.
Exactly.
You know what it would do though? It would buy us a producer for the podcast.
Oh,
There you go.
That
We
would
need
be
one.
all in favor of that. All right, guys. Well, it's been fun being with you today. If you are a fan, a follower, we would love to hear from you. You can reach out to us at youthministrysherpas@gmail.com. Don't forget to share us, like us, give us a 5-star review on iTunes, tell a friend about us, post our stuff on social media, or as Shannon likes to say, even possibly
Smash the subscribe button.
so. And we have had so much fun doing this. We are going to be back in a couple weeks with a new episode. Until then, Sherpas. See you guys later. Bye.
Peace out.